What's up, Rockstars? Today I'm going to be telling you why we are ruining the industry. Alright, let's get some clarifications out of the way. This is not going to be in the same style as videos I used to do, but it is going to be a similar subject matter. What I mean by that is, early on in my YouTube days, I didn't take the platform I have here as seriously as perhaps I should have, and I was quite new and growing, and that involved me doing some yelling, getting really hot-headed around some stuff, very passionate about it. I mean, that passion is what drove me to make this channel in the first place, and it's still what drives me to do it all these years later. So just as an FYI, while I'm passionate, I'm going to try and be a little bit more nuanced, a little bit more well-spoken. That being said, of course, this is always unscripted, so if I do say anything particularly dumb, I might have not actually meant it the way you're taking it. Feel free to ask in the comments below. And in fact, let's have a conversation about this, of course, also down in the comments below. Let's go ahead and have a civilized discussion about the subject, where you think we are going, where we're at right now, and maybe some of the problems you see, whether you agree or disagree, stuff like that. This is going to be partially against companies and partially against consumers. So I guess I'm kind of throwing the hate everywhere a little bit. And there's no actual hate, of course. One thing to note is when I say we, for the most part, there'll be a few exceptions, and I'll list that, and I include myself in that we, by the way. I mean people that aren't watching this video right now. There are a plethora of people that don't go on YouTube and watch about the board game industry. Totally fine, by the way, but they are more what I'm talking about as opposed to people that are a little bit more educated in all the purchasing decisions and how that affects the industry and stuff like that. People who do research and come to like YouTube to discuss it, stuff like that. So I guess that's kind of the blanket statement. I'll have other statements throughout as we kind of discuss this. So why did this come up? It's actually a note I made a long time ago. I don't remember what initially prompted it. I think it was actually from a video I saw covering a different industry, and I thought that's really applicable to board games, so I want to put some more thought into it. Well, put some more thought into it, and some stuff has happened recently, whether it's game companies shutting down or anything else like that, and I really wanted to kind of discuss that. All right, so we're going to start with a few news articles and stuff like that, and then I'm going to discuss kind of the problems that I'm seeing that may have led to this point or continue to lead to this point. So here is a statement from Grimlore Games. Suffice it to say, they are going out of business. They are liquidating all their assets. They are no longer a company. And that means that anybody who backed Village Attacks Grim Dynasty will not get their game. You are owed nothing. You will get nothing. As sad as that is, they are now gone. Your money is wasted. They spent it elsewhere besides delivering the game to you. So they ran a bad business. You got shafted for it. That's how that works. Luckily, unlike Mythic Games, which I feel kind of guilty about because I know I didn't see the writings on the wall well enough. And in fact, I mean, I even backed Anastyr, right? So I definitely put my money where my mouth is, but sadly my mouth wasn't in the right spot. And I know I led a lot of you guys to back some Mythic games because I had a great time with the prototypes and I was buying them because I enjoy them. And now we're all in this pickle together where we probably won't get all of our games and they're struggling and all that stuff. Luckily, I noticed the issues with Grimlore Games launching super, sketch, really early games very early on with a very a poor attitude towards the consumer side of things way back with the Everrain, or as my patrons called, the Neverrain. And so I kind of was not pushing guys towards this stuff too much. So I feel a little bit better there, and hopefully I may have helped save you some money by not wasting money throwing it at Grimlore Games. So hopefully that's the case. But I mean, I know I shouldn't feel guilty at all either way because like I'm always just doing my best. But when I get it right, I'm happy. When I get it wrong, I'm a little bummed by it. Either way, they're done. They're gone. There's no way to get your game. There's no way to do anything like that. As an aside, real quick, let me know your preference. Go ahead and feel free to comment right now. You can continue watching the video or pause it or anything, but Mythic Games could have done what Grimlore Games did right now and just left. Just said, nope, sorry, we don't have the money, and we're gone. Which is better? Is it better for Grimlore Games to do this and just peace out and not offer an option to buy it? Or is it better to do what Mythic Games does and charge you at the wazoo, but you get your game? Let me know in the comments below. I think it's kind of a non-apples to apples comparison because Mythic Games has way more backers, 10,000 plus just on the GameFound page alone, whereas Grimlore Games has 3,000. So for them to get the $1,000 minimum order, or 1,000 order minimum quantity, a little bit easier than Grimlore Games would have had. So just as an FYI there. But they didn't sell like the Everrain IP or do anything like that. They're just kind of like, pieced out, I guess, after a year of saying nothing. So, you feel free to read all this, and I'll cover it more in a news video, but suffice it to say, you guys are screwed. All of that's not working out. Now, why is this an issue? Why is this an issue? Well, if we go to the campaign here, and we take a look at the game, what you're going to notice, I'm just going to scroll while talking, you guys can take a look at all this, is look how big of a freaking game this is. Dear Lord Almighty. Now, it's easy to blame the company because at the end of the day, the company decides what they make. They decide what's on offer. They're the ones choosing to make this big game. Nobody forced them to make this big game. They chose to do it, and then they chose to not be able to deliver this giant game that they claimed that they would deliver and never did. Look at all the different dice options. I mean, there's tons of stuff. You can get a freaking backpack. I mean, they just threw everything at this. This is actually what prevented me from backing it, thankfully, at the time. You might recall that. And that's true. It is definitely the company's fault. However, what I will say is that while a company can offer something for sale, they cannot sell anything you're not buying. To sell it, you have to buy it, which means they can throw all this stuff up if they want, but if nobody's buying it, then there's no harm, no foul. But people do buy it. You and me and everybody, we buy this stuff all the time. And because it's a too good to be true deal, or because we want it all, or anything like that. This industry is incredibly data-driven. I'm going to get to that in a little bit. Let's go to this article here. This is for Perseverance, Perseverance, I think it's called. They will be going on to GameFound for episodes 3 through 4. And one of the reasons is some of the features. For instance, better functionality, especially stretch pay. So they get actual stretch pay where you can essentially pay a little bit each month to get that big item you want. And of course, the first concept, this is not yelling at anybody, by the way, because this is a generalized thing I'm talking about here. Stretch pay is definitely a thing that will make me back right away. Or I will second that stretch pay is a game changer for the crowdfunding space. If prices go up due to high shipping, material costs, increased labor costs, etc., then being able to stretch the payment out to 10 plus months is simply a great idea. Now, I would counter that it's also an option to take the increased costs and make a game with that in mind, as opposed to just charging more and more and more and more. But the problem isn't even so much that. The problem is the size of so many of these games. Now, what if I were to tell you that GameFound didn't add stretch pay to benefit you? That's a nice benefit. There is pros to that, pros and cons, right? There are definitely benefits to stretch pay, but really it's a way for them to make it easier for you to put money into their bank account, right? Because the more money you spend on GameFound, the better they're off. So if they can make it easier for you to do that, that's what they're going to do. Notice the dev time is on that and not necessarily like making limits. Like, hey, I want to back this game, but if it goes up this much, I just want to be out, or I don't want to be able to back more than this. Like, they're not going to do any kind of management that only benefits you and makes it to where you're spending less money. They want you to spend more money. That's why they have the follow feature, right? Where it's like, hey, you can follow this game and save $10 off. That is able to add FOMO, because you're going to feel like you're going to miss out on the $10, and a sunken cost fallacy, and you didn't even have to purchase anything. It's a genius move. Sure, you saved $10, so that's a benefit to you, but it's a benefit to them too, because now they got you hooked, line, and sunk before the campaign even launches, where you feel like you already have an investment that you will lose if you don't back it. That's why it works. That's why it's there. I fully expect eventually to see stuff like a reward system where they gamify it. Take Super Backer and make it a reward system where, oh, hey, you gain these perks if you're backing this and doing that and spending X amount and buying X amount of games and stuff like that. It's all there, and it's all data driven to get us to spend more money. It's why it's there. So yes, it's a benefit, but really it's a sneaky little thing that just like grows into a bigger industry issue. And that's bigger prices, bigger games, right? Our campaign games went from 60 hours to 300 to 500 to infinite replayability. And that's where, like, we wanted more. It's not just enough for one campaign. Now we need a whole trilogy of campaigns. It's not just enough for one Kickstarter. Now we need a second Kickstarter and a third Kickstarter and a fourth Kickstarter and a fifth Kickstarter, constantly adding more and more and more and more. And they're doing it because we buy it, because we purchase it, because we want it. And that then leads to these huge games that suddenly they can't deliver because they have to deliver 18 million boxes, and they can't do that. Like, they need to make this now instead of just this. If it was just that, you guys would have your games already. They would have been able to make it. It would have been a quick turnaround. It would have been easy to do, but no. They're offering more and we're buying more. That's the problem. We are ruining the industry. Now, there's more to it than that, of course. Data-driven is inherently a huge thing. For instance, you will see a lot of fantasy games. The reason is because, statistically speaking, they sell better than a sci-fi. More often than not, there are exceptions, of course, but fantasy is a much easier way to get in. It's in pop culture. It's in vogue now. Cthulhu was there for a while. Zombies was there for a while. Pirates was there for a while. There's all these things that the data is showing that. And that is across the entire industry. Did you know there was a time where it was very incentivized to put orange or yellow on your thumbnail on YouTube because the algorithm happened to be picking those, and like there was statistical it was a real thing. We didn't know why it was. For a while it was anyway, but it would do that, so people would start wearing yellow jackets and putting yellow text and doing all this kind of stuff. Because they're chasing the data. The data drives it all. And these crowdfunding campaigns give you so much data, a wealth of data. You know what add-ons sell and what don't. You know what expansions are good. You know what languages to target. You know what clientele to do. You know everything you need to know as a business to craft a great game. Co-op. Do co-op. Yeah, people might like competitive, but a lot don't. But most everybody likes co-op. Everybody wants at least one co-op game on their game shelf. And it can support more players, which means more people interested in maybe buying it for the group, and it fits more people because it's a lot more variety in how many it supports. So you're going to see a lot of fantasy, you're going to see a lot of co-op, right? You're getting all this stuff. More expansions because they sell. It's all data driven, and we are driving that data. It's as simple as that, really. Now, of course, it can be a little malicious too, right? You've seen it, and we've all seen it, where they'll have a retail game, very obvious the retail, and they'll put a single Kickstarter exclusive there. There's a sale going on right now. It's already sold out, so I'm not going to bother, but it's on Miniature Market, where they were selling the super exclusive Joan of Arc minis for $16. A great deal, for sure. Those are great minis too. But that's why they were super exclusive. It's why they named it that. It's why it was there, because they knew they wanted to go to retail with it, but they wanted you to buy it. And so therefore they put the little carrot on a stick. Command does this. A ton do this. I just bought the DC deck building game, and they had the same thing. Oh, here, we'll add a card here. This is the promo card you get with the retail package. A single card. They'll throw in a card. They'll throw in a mini. They'll throw in a couple minis. They'll do something. They'll brand it around something to get you to want to spend more for it. Because now you're not only paying them directly instead of the retailer who's paying half, but you'll also pay for shipping, you'll pay for freight, and it's just way more money in their coffers if you buy it right now. So here's this little carrot on a stick, and they do it because it works. Because it works. As much as I may complain or you may complain, we are not the average. This is a time where I'm going to talk a little bit about hobbies, nerdom, and an adjacency to gatekeeping. What I mean by that is, as an industry grows, naturally, you introduce more consumers that are ignorant. That's not a bad thing on them. You know, people buy phones, right? Not everybody knows every single thing about the phone and whether this was a great processor or it's last year's, or whether that company just stole those patents and now they're being sued. They don't care. They just went to the store and got a phone or whatever. That's fine. You can't know everything about everything you buy. You have a limited time, a little bit of money, and you have your passions. So when things are small, when industries are small, it's just the nerds nerding out over their passion. And that's all it is. And it's great and it's wonderful, and they do that, and it's awesome. But eventually, as an industry grows, they start getting outnumbered. Right? So for every person on here on YouTube watching me or any other YouTube creator talk about this industry, talk about these games, there's 5 other people that have never touched or even thought about watching a board game YouTube video. Why would they do that? They're just there to back a game or to get the minis or because it looks cool or somebody sent it to them and they have the time or whatever it might be. They are not as invested as you and I. And that's fine, of course, but eventually that gets to a point where there are whole companies that can survive off just them, right? You think about companies like EA in video games, right? So way back in video game days, and whether you draw the line at the PlayStation 1 or the NES or, whatever it might be, early on, it was a whole bunch of like really nerdy video game fans making video games for other video game fans. And often the head of the company was the lead programmer / founder. Right? That eventually the company grew quite big, but it was definitely somebody passionate about video games leading it. And eventually, the suits come in, right? And they're not passionate or may even play video games, but they are passionate about money. And that's their business. And now video games are just a means to that money, as opposed to the video games being the focus on it. And of course, then you get stuff like EA and stuff like that, where everybody hates EA, yet they're making so much money because for every person that hates EA and he's yelling about it online, you know, it's this small little niche group and everybody else doesn't care or doesn't know. And they're just buying games, and it happens to be by EA or whatever it is. Like, that's just every single industry. It's nothing inherently, like there's pros and cons, right? More people are enjoying the hobby, which is great. Board games are growing, and we're not there yet. There's still plenty of people that have just a great company wanting to make great games. I'm going to end on that in a little bit, but there's plenty also that are just here to make money, and the board games are a means to it, and they're looking at the data and they're trying to see exactly what they can do to get as much money from you as possible. And then eventually, if the ship goes down, they can jump ship to another one because their business works on any company because their business is money. So that's kind of that. And it's unfortunate, but there are a lot of ignorant people that I will never reach. You will never reach. No comment you write on Kickstarter will reach them because they're not reading the comments. They're not watching the YouTube videos. It does not matter. You can never stop that. There was a discussion with my patrons briefly around in my Discord. If Mythic Games could launch another campaign once let's say they go through each campaign, they deliver what they can, and now they're ready to still be a company and make it. And it kind of ended on most of us saying that they probably actually could. All they need is an IP that's big enough to reach new people that don't care about the industry, and they could easily fund that. Because it doesn't matter what I say, it doesn't matter what the comments say or anything like that. Those people are following from another site from their hobby space, video games or whatever it might be, movies, and then they get the link, it gets the news article, they click on that, and then suddenly now they're backers and they never touch it again. So they're surprised when a pledge manager shows up in their email inbox, right? That's kind of what that is. I guess lastly, I want to end on, before I talk about kind of a positive spin on all this, what I refer to as company simps. If you don't know the slang, a simp is essentially, it started out as like a guy wanting a girl's attention and doing anything they can to get that attention. And so they'll act in different ways and they'll be ridiculous as long as they think they can get attention or a favor from the girl. And that's now referred to in most general things. So you know how like So you know how there are like people that like really define themselves by a company or really define themselves by a sports team, or, you know, they wear all the name brand stuff or they follow this. And if you attack that, even though they're not related to it at all, they will defend it to its limit. This is probably the one part where you and I can kind of come into this because we tend to be passionate. We're the ones watching these videos. And so we tend to really like or feel like we like these people. And then with a crowdfunding space, if you feel like you know the people, and they know you. The problem is business is business. Let me kind of clarify that a little bit. I run a YouTube channel. I cover board games, and board game developers talk to me, and I talk to them. And if it wasn't for them making the game and me being a YouTuber that reports on this, we could probably be best friends. But there's always that line in the middle because I have a responsibility to do what I need to do to report properly, and they have a responsibility to the business to do what they need to do. I'm not saying money always corrupts, but it sometimes can. And I don't mean that in like a super negative way, but how many times have you heard of like friends going into business and it ends with them no longer being friends, right? People have different modes, different passions, different requirements of them to do what they need to do, whether they like it or not, whether they would normally do that or not within business. People have responsibilities. And so as much as I would like to befriend companies, there has to be that little bit of a line to where I would do that and they would do what they need to do. If you want a good example of that, The Post. It's a movie that was very well done about this similar thing with journalism and politicians and being really friendly, but still having to do what you need to do, even if it means breaking up a friendship, right? So at the end of the day, though, a lot of people don't. And they feel like they know this company, and this company can do anything, and they will defend them, they'll defend against attacks, making excuses for things. And that is a big problem as well. And we're all probably guilty of that to some point or another. Part of it's just human nature. But it's not all bad. That's what I wanted to end with. It's not all bad. There are still some great companies out there, some great developers that are just passionate about making board games. And by the way, anybody I pointed out here, any company that I pointed out, especially early on, like the Perseverance, stuff like that, I'm not targeting this at them at all. Like, that is not the point whatsoever. In fact, I don't even know them from Adam. Like, I don't know. I'm not making a statement on that. I was just doing that to kind of lead into the discussion, right? But like, there are some great companies out there. The problem is that at the end of the day, we decide where this industry goes. We have that power. They cannot take that from us. And so we can really put our money where our mouth is, at least for now. I still think we're not too far outnumbered. I still think there's probably about a 3-1, but even still, if they lost a third, right, that would be really bad. So I guess just back responsibly. Look, make sure that you're looking at a game, and if it looks like it's this humongous thing, and they don't have a track record for being able to deliver humongous things, don't do it, right? When Grimlore Games was showing that Village Attacks with like all that stuff, they had never delivered anything like that. In fact, they hadn't even delivered their last one. And so that was a bad back. And we need to be more conscious about that. If they struggle to do it, then they can't do it. Every company, I think, has a limit to what they can make, right? What they can like successfully keep delivering and, you know, not have major hiccups or issues or stuff like that. And you just kind of have to keep in line with that. So I'm not pointing out any specific companies here. I'm not pointing any fingers at any specific people here. Just try to be responsible. Right? If you see something that just makes it easier for you to spend more money, maybe that's just what they want you to do. And it's not necessarily what you need to do. I'm going to be trying to do that too, but I mean, as you guys know, like we're all passionate about this stuff. I wouldn't have the YouTube channel if I wasn't passionate about it. That's for sure. So anyway, guys, yeah, just support the people that deserve supporting, that will deliver a great game to you at a fair price. And if you can manage that, I think we all win in the long run. No more games no more companies will have to go out of business. No more people have to go without their games because we are being responsible, both on the developer side and the consumer side. All right, that's it, guys. That's all I had. Have a wonderful rest of your day. I will have another news video here soon. I will have another review here soon. Actually, I'll be filming that later tonight for you guys. So stay tuned for that. Subscribe if you want to see more of that sort of stuff, of course. And with that, take care. Bye, guys.